Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pop up our introductory presentation here. So what I'm going to do is start with just the basics and sort of the basic premise that the Corvus Centre started from. It's the idea that decision-making that supports nature is absolutely vital, and it's really hard. And so it's important to provide support to the people who do this. And so the Corvus Centre's perspective on support means providing research, providing facilitation, providing the science that goes into it, undertaking training to help out, convening and bringing people together, all in support of that need to have decision-making and policy support nature. And so our vision, our overall statement for our vision is that the Centre for Conservation Policy is a not-for-profit organization, and our vision is that public policy actively supports biodiversity. And the way we do that, our work involves supporting decision makers directly who are working on behalf of nature, also creating, gathering, and disseminating the science and the information that's needed to improve conservation policy, actually doing design and evaluation of conservation policy, and also facilitating that pragmatic application of research into the policy process, which is always a big challenge. So I've used the words conservation policy about 40 times so far in the last 2 minutes. So what do we mean by that? Conservation means that you're ensuring that the ecological processes and functions that support biodiversity persist over the long term, and that happens through protection, restoration, and sustainable use of the systems that underlie all of that. And policy, and we've stolen this from the Max Bell Foundation, they have a great description of public policy. It's official decisions that guide the activities of organizations operating in the public interest. So that's not just governments, that's NGOs, environmental NGOs who are again operating in the public interest. And it not only refers to the decisions, but also the programs and the administrative practices that those organizations undertake in the process of operating for the public interest, in the public interest. And so that's the way we view conservation and policy when we talk about conservation policy. Our focus and approach, first thing is we've divided the work that we do under 4 conservation themes. So the first one is land use and biodiversity, which means informing how to build on, use, protect, travel across, reside on, and play on the land and the water in a way that supports nature. The second one is natural infrastructure, and that means understanding and maintaining the natural features and systems that provide the services that are essential to society. Third one is nature and climate change, and that's improving the understanding of how both nature is affected by climate change and how maintaining nature can help us adapt to climate change. And then the fourth one is finance and biodiversity. So that's incorporating consideration of biodiversity into the flows of public and private investment dollars and in a way that is nature positive. You're going to see that term crop up again later on. So those are our 4 conservation themes. Our operational approaches to our mission, to our mandate, is first of all, applied and applying research. So this is undertaking projects that focus on applied research or actively incorporating science and evidence into decision-making in support of biodiversity. The second operational approach is actually facilitating programs. So those are projects that focus on capacity, training, providing expertise, anything that can directly improve the ability of decision makers to deliver programs in support of biodiversity and nature. And then the third one, knowledge mobilization, which is a nice jargony term, but that means actively informing and catalyzing that policy discussion around nature conservation, and then working both to create the background knowledge and to foster the dissemination of those ideas, the dissemination of that information. So those are our 3 operational approaches. And when you kind of think about how we fit all of those pieces together, it's like putting them in the 3 columns: conservation themes, our operational approaches, and the third column being our target partners. And you'll see this as environmental charities, local, provincial, federal government. And as we say on our website, those are our target partners, but we recognize that working with them also means that you are working with academia, First Nations, local communities, industry, private landowners, all that whole range of people who are making decisions that affect nature. So when we look at this and we think about what we're going to undertake as a project, it has to cross through each one of these columns. So it might be something related to land use and biodiversity, where we're undertaking a program facilitation project, and we're doing that in partnership with the provincial government, or something related to finance and biodiversity, that the point is to disseminate that conservation policy, and we're doing that in partnership with an environmental NGO. In terms of funding, our funding so far, and we project, is going to be about a 50-50 split between grants and fee-for-service. I say 50-50, but there's also a tiny little bit in there. We have the capacity to take donations, and we are in the process of securing our charitable status. For anybody who's gone through that process, you know it's very crystal ball-like as opposed to very prescriptive, but we hope to have that finalized by hopefully by the fall. So some of our current efforts, some of the things that we're working on right now and trying to get rolling in terms of project development. One is the reconciling of conservation of nature and conservation of agriculture in the context of regional planning. Another one is a private land conservation research program, a number of elements of research that need to be undertaken to help improve private land conservation. Ecosystem service areas, a new ESA concept for municipalities, helping identify how you can create and manage and operate local conservation funds in Alberta, actually tracking conservation offsetting in Alberta, and then a number of items that relate to building capacity for conservation policy. And at this point, these are all preceded by a number of research components that we're seeking to undertake. Also in the fall, we're going to be initiating some meetings with the sector. These are facilitated discussions, and when I say sector, that's environmental NGOs, municipalities, provincial, federal agencies. We're going to do one meeting in Edmonton, one meeting in Calgary, and we're going to be reaching out to folks about both the topics. We have some ideas about how to approach that, but we want to get some feedback from people about a way to do that, and also participation, just getting folks out there for those discussions. So in summary, our work is use research and facilitation to mobilize policy, to mobilize decision-making, and to do so in a way that better supports nature. And our model is to do that working collaboratively and in support of those people who are making decisions that affect nature positively or negatively. And the skill set we bring to that is analysis and research, working directly with decision makers, and catalyzing the necessary conversations that need to happen within that process. And I think another way of looking at this is that we're kind of like a translation service, in the sense that we have fluency in a number of languages and conversation ability in a number of languages, but we translate because we can translate between disciplines. We speak policy, speak ecology, speak economics, speak communications between the players. So NGOs and scientists and landowners and governments all have slightly different lexicon, a slightly different language, way of approaching things, and even between governments, municipal, federal, and provincial. Okay, so that's the brief overview of the Corvus Centre.